What's going on, guys? It's Ty the TV Guy, and I'm back here today to give you guys a video about whether some side and fringe characters in Stranger Things are going to return for the 5th and final season. This, of course, isn't going to include our main cast of characters, the 4 original boys, the main adults, the main older kids. None of those types of characters are going to be in this. This is going to be like real fringe characters that have only been in the show at certain points in time, and whether I think they're going to have a role to play in Season 5. I also want to say sorry for my recent inactivity. I've been kind of busy, and I honestly haven't gotten to watch a whole lot of new shows. The only show I've really been watching is a rewatch of Breaking Bad with my girlfriend, but I do plan on expanding my show catalog in the near future and getting more content out for you guys. Alright, so to get into this, I'm going to start out with Argyle, who I give a 0% chance of being in Season 5, actually, because the actor who plays Argyle, or played Argyle, I should say, Eduardo Franco, announced that he did not even receive a call from the Duffer Brothers or anyone from Stranger Things about being brought back for Season 5, so obviously if the actor wasn't there to act for the 5th and final season, he's not going to be included, and I don't see him being a relevant enough character to even be included in any type of flashback scenario, so I don't think Argyle has a role to play in the 5th and final season. The next character I'm looking at is Lonnie Byers, the father of Jonathan and Will, and the ex-husband of Joyce, of course. I'm giving him a 1% chance to return for this 5th and final season. The only way I could see him returning is if something unfortunately happens to Will again and Will passes away. Maybe his father will be at the funeral, maybe trying to, console Joyce and everyone once again. Or maybe, just maybe, because they're going back to those Season 1 roots the Duffer Brothers have confirmed, maybe he'll somehow find his way involved again and feel like he actually wants to be a father to the kids again and get back in the picture and help in some way. I don't really see it at this point because he's been out of the show for so long, but just the fact that they emphasize that they're going back to those Season 1 roots, technically Lonnie would be somewhat a part of that, and that's why I give him just a smidge of a chance to be in the final season. Next, at a 2% chance of returning for the final season, I do have Eddie Munson. Now, I'm really against this. I've talked about it in past videos. I don't think he should be included in the show moving forward in anything other than a flashback, which I think they will do, and I'll talk about that later. But as far as Eddie actually returning as either himself or some type of spin-off evil character that's helping Vecna, or whatever all these theories are saying, I think they're all wrong, and they all should definitely not happen. It would be a disgrace to Eddie's character, I think. So I give it a 2% chance of happening just because maybe the Duffer Brothers would feed the fans with that, and they know it would bring a lot of attention to the show, even more than it would already get. But I really hope they don't do it, from just the standpoint of integrity of the show. It wouldn't make sense, and it would kind of ruin his character and certain elements of the show for me. Next, at a 5% chance of returning, I have Terry Ives, the real biological mother of Jane, or 11, and we last saw her in Season 2, really, and that's really the only season we actually see her physically in. I think there's flashbacks of her in Season 4 a little bit, but we only actually see Terry Ives in Season 2, and I am estimating we won't see her again in the show. It's just been so long since those events, and I think 11 kind of got closure with all that stuff and with Collie and kind of exploring her past, in her personal history, the way she did in Season 2, and then I think she got some closure with the stuff at Hawkins' lab in Season 4, so I do think, though there will be some flashbacks to stuff like Stranger Things always incorporates, I think Season 5 will be a lot about living in the present and defeating the ultimate evil that is Vecna and his army. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of time to spend on things like rekindling a relationship between Elle and her mother, who, it doesn't even seem like Terry ever leaves the house. So I'm just not sure how they would link back up again. So I give it a 5% chance. Just because maybe to tie up some loose ends or something, but I don't see it happening. Also at 5%, and honestly this might even be a bit high, I probably should have put him maybe even down at the 1 or 2% with Lonnie and Eddie, but I do have Enzo, or Dimitri, his real character name, at 5%. He is the prison guard from Season 4 in Russia that tried to help Hopper get out of jail, and then things didn't work out for a while, but he ultimately helped the crew in the end anyway. But it appears he probably would have stayed in his homeland of Russia with his child and his wife. So I don't think he'll be involved in this season. The only reason I gave him a slightly higher chance than the others, which once again I might slightly regret, but the only reason I did give him that slightly higher chance is that he seemed to be really popular with the fans, and his skills would be helpful. to what's going on here. So I could see Hopper maybe calling him up as like an old friend, like, hey, we need all hands on deck here. Can you like get on a helicopter over to America? But once again, probably not. But just the fact that he survived, which isn't true for some of the Stranger Things characters, and that his skills would be helpful, and he kind of knows what they're going up against here. I gave him 5%, but don't expect to see Enzo in the show anymore. All right, now we're getting into a range where it's a little more realistic for these characters to return, but still unlikely. At 15%, I have Victor Creel. Now, Victor Creel is a really interesting one. Obviously, Henry/Vecna/1 is his son, and it would be really interesting for him to come face to face with his son and confront him as the newly formed monster that he is, which is Vecna. And so that dynamic would be quite interesting, and who knows, it could be something the Duffer Brothers explore in Season 5. If they did, I think it would be quick, because once again, I think the focus is going to be on our main characters we've had all along, and their, journey in battle to take down this evil that they've been fighting for so long. But I certainly think something could happen with Victor, having more insight, having more help for the team, against his son, but also like an emotional moment maybe, kind of like a Billy thing where, 11 tapped into him at the end of Season 3 and kind of like brought back the humanity out of him. Maybe the only person who could do that in this situation is his father. But it doesn't seem like Vecna's very forgiving of his parents. Seems like he despises them, thinks they're worthless piece of junk. I mean, he killed his whole family basically. So, or tried to at least. So, yeah, I don't think any of this really makes sense, but I just think it's more within the realm of possibility than the names I've mentioned prior. And maybe they'll go to Victor for more answers about his son sometime in Season 5. So 15% is the chance I give that one. Next, I have Kali, number 8 from Hawkins' lab, and 11's lost sister. And I've thought long and hard about this one, but I'm only giving it a 20% chance. I really just think the Duffer Brothers will opt to steer clear of what was a very controversial character in one of their most controversial episodes, one that the majority of fans didn't really like or appreciate, even though I don't really, align with that. I actually think it was a solid episode to explore 11 and her humanity and just kind of how good of a heart she has and how she opted to spare that man's life even after what he did to her and her family. But nevertheless, it wasn't all that popular of a route that the Duffer Brothers took back in Season 2. And, she hasn't been around for Season 3, hasn't been around for Season 4. It would probably be a bit too convenient for her to just pop her head out and help with her amazing powers in Season 5 to take down Vecna. It might really not feel earned unless she's with the crew for the whole season, which I think would just take the spotlight away from our main cast of characters. So I really don't think it would be a good move at this point. And it's probably best to just leave that stuff in the past because of the general feeling about her from the fandom. The reason I have it as high as 20% is just because there's been certain rumors that have swirled about Noah Schnapp following the actress during Season 5 filming on Instagram, which seems a bit odd, but, who knows if that has any correlation whatsoever. And just that, obviously, her powers would be of help to the group and to 11, who presumably is the only one who's going to be able to actually fight Vecna on the level of having powers to actually use against him. And we all know that like guns don't work the best on these monsters and stuff. So it seems like it's going to be 11 against the world again, and the crew of our characters around her will just have to do like supporting activities. But if she had a character like Kali with powers, once again, of course that would take their fight to the next level. But I just don't think from a storyline and from an interpersonal connection standpoint between the characters, it would make a whole lot of sense. So I have Kali at just 20%. All right, next we're jumping up to 45%, and that's for Mr. Clarke, the school teacher that they had in Seasons 1 through 3. He grew kind of less and less prevalent over the seasons, to the point where in Season 3, I believe he was really only in that one scene or two with Joyce in his garage, where he's teaching her about the electromagnetic field and all that. But once again, as I mentioned earlier, the Duffer Brothers have announced that they are going back to the Season 1 roots of this show in terms of character groupings and just the overall vibe the show is going to give off. They want it to feel just like it did back in the day when they originally released the show. So I could definitely see a character like Scott Clarke returning for the 5th season. Obviously, he's proven to be one of the most intelligent characters in the show, and his connection to the kids, and especially Dustin, could be useful if the kids need some advice on how to build something, just like they needed back in seasons 1 and 2. I give Mr. Clarke a 45%, and I honestly hope we see him. This might be at the top of my list for characters I hope I see again before the end of the show, just because I thought he was so solid and such a positive on-screen presence in seasons 1 through 3 for Stranger Things. All right, so I only have 3 characters left to talk about, so most of the characters here I think have a less than 50% chance of returning, but now one of these last 3 characters I think actually has a 50% chance to be in season 5, and that is Susie, Dustin's girlfriend that we first got introduced to in season 3. She had a pretty minor role in season 3, once again a minor role in season 4, but they did choose to incorporate her, and I could see something similar happening in season 5 again. Or even maybe in a, flat or a spring forward scene, I guess you could call it, at the end of the show. If they defeat the monster and Dustin is still with us, I hope, then maybe it could show him and Susie being together at a later point. Or the more likely scenario is probably just that Dustin calls her up once again to help them crack some type of code that her super intelligence will help them do. Yeah, I think there's about a 50% chance it could go either way. The fans obviously seem to enjoy her and Dustin. Obviously, just seeing Dustin happy makes a lot of big Dustin fans happy. So I could definitely see them bringing her back. But once again, the thing that makes me hesitant is just there's already such a huge crop of characters that are main characters in the show. I mean, we have like 15 main characters. So just divvying out time to all these side characters, even though there's going to be a lot of runtime, I think, it still just might not be doable. So a lot of these people just aren't going to be able to be included, and that could include or exclude Susie for season 5. Next, I have Dr. Owens, who I put at a 70% chance to be in season 5. And this one's interesting because we last see him as he's pleading with the military officer not to kill 11. Even the military officer obviously gives the order to kill 11 anyway, but that's really the last time we see him. I believe that's in season 4, episode 8, so we don't see him at the very conclusion of season 4. We don't really know where he stands. He seems like at this point too significant of a character to just kill off screen. I mean, he was with us, through all of season 2. We only got him a little bit at the end of season 3. But then we got him a good bit in season 4 too, so I don't think they would just kill Dr. Owens off screen. I think he would need an on-screen death at this point. That would feel appropriate. So I don't think he's dead. Now the question is, will they incorporate him again in season 5? And I just think yes. With his military connections, with his prowess in those areas, I think that he can still be of use to the crew and play a big part in helping them without having to take up too much screen time. So I do believe we'll see Dr. Owens again in season 5. It's just the fact that we don't really know where things ended with him in season 4. And technically, even though I don't think they would do it this way, he could be dead. He could have just gone to hide somewhere for all we know, because he's not really on the government's good side, at least the majority of it at this point, because he has, a different standpoint on 11 than most of them. So it's a little iffy with him still, but I just think he's an important character and he'll find a way to get involved, and Hopper might even call him up for something this final season. And then the last character I want to talk about is one I've actually already talked about, and that's Eddie. But in this regard, I want to talk about him in a flashback scene, because this is much different than him actually returning as some form of his character. Just talking about him being in a flashback scene, I think there is an 85% chance of this happening. So I almost definitely think there will be like a 2-minute emotional flashback scene, something like him and Dustin having an emotional conversation just about life, and just a fun Dustin and Eddie conversation that we got accustomed to in season 4. I think they will feed the fans in that way, and that is what I think would be appropriate with Eddie. I definitely, once again, don't think they should bring him back in any real way, but giving us, a little bit of closure, even more so with him, and a nice little fun and lighthearted flashback between him and Dustin and maybe a couple other characters would be really fitting. So yeah, I give it a 2% chance that Eddie actually returns, but an 85% chance that he's going to be in some type of flashback. And to be clear here, of unseen footage, like not just a flashback like they usually do, where it's like showing old memories to like motivate the crew or to make them cry or something, like an actual like new footage, but it's presented as a flashback that was from before when he died in the Upside Down. That's what I mean when I say flashback. I think it'll be something we've never seen before, just not in the present. It will still be a flashback. Okay, those are the side characters that I decided to look into today. Let me know in the comments if you think my calibration of their likeliness to return is accurate. I think for the most part, I did a good job. I could see a couple people returning here that I don't expect, but all in all, I think they're going to focus on our main group of characters in the final season, and I sure hope they do. Once again, if you enjoyed, please like and comment any thoughts you had on this video, something I got wrong, somebody I missed talking about, anything like that, and subscribe to the channel for more Stranger Things content. It's officially time to start getting hyped for the final season. But otherwise, I'm Ty the TV guy. I'll get some new videos out soon. You guys have a good day. Peace out.